Tap out early. Don't feel ashamed. It's gonna happen. The actual jiu-jitsu that we know today came from the Gracie family. They took jiu-jitsu, made it their own, and called it Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. My understanding of it, I'm Brazilian myself, I love jiu-jitsu. It's one of my passions. Just know it. Pace yourself. Give yourself like a month of just going and know it's gonna be hard, know it's gonna suck. Why not try to understand how that happened? What did they do? How did they move? What did they move out of the way?
Welcome to the Unlimited You podcast. Believing firmly in the limitless potential that resides within each individual, your host, Master Victor Almeida, a distinguished martial arts expert, is here to guide you in unlocking your inner power. Each episode offers practical knowledge, from strength training techniques to the calming practices of meditation, tailored to enhance your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Join us on this empowering journey and embrace the warrior that lies within you.
And how y'all doing? We're back here for another episode of the Unlimited You. First, before we get started, check out the hoodie. My buddy Pale Horse from our meditation episode, he created this. He's got some embroidered stuff, some amazing graphics in the back. Check out his website. It's palehorsedesigns.com. Pretty sure it's .com, right? Pale Horse Designs. And it's amazing work. He does a lot of like sacred artwork, murals and stuff. He's the one who got us into meditation, me and Caroline. And he does an online meditation as well on his Instagram every Tuesday at 8 p.m. So if you are ever interested in, trying out meditation and you don't know how to do it and you're like, oh, I want to try it once a week. Tuesday, 8 p.m. It's streaming. You can just pull up your phone and do it right there. So that's an easy way that you can get into these meditations. I was actually having a conversation with Caroline's boss, Steve. What's up, Steve, if you're watching? And he was asking, what are some of the ways we can implement some of the things we talk about here? Because we're talking about, making life changes and implementing them in a way that we can better ourselves, right? And we start by doing these things slowly. So if you just jump in trying to meditate for an hour every single day, you're probably gonna fail. But if you do maybe like once a week and you try a guided meditation by someone who knows what they're doing, and Chris does a really good job. He guides it really well. He does it beautifully and with good intention, good focus, and always a little bit different. That way you're learning and you're taking it takes you a little bit deeper. And it's just a good way for you to really dive your feet into that aspect. As far as let's say you're going into training, like we're about to talk about jiu-jitsu. If you want to get into jiu-jitsu, or pick your discipline and then go try it out. Maybe you start out once a week, maybe you start out twice a week. And there's a lot of gyms that you are able to do that, where you don't have to go 4 days a week, because some people don't have that kind of schedule. So it's a good way to introduce yourself into these environments is pick a school, pick one that you've done some research on, make sure they got some good reviews, they are teaching and talking the right material, and go train. And so today we're going to talk about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So the history of Jiu Jitsu, right? It originated in Japan from Jiu Jitsu. And the actual Jiu Jitsu that we know today came from the Gracie family. They took Jiu Jitsu, made it their own, and called it Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It's essentially a grappling style of martial arts. Some people call this soft style of martial arts because you're not throwing punches, but it's not necessarily soft. You're, going for chokes, going for arm breaks, working positioning, learning how to move and control an opponent and your distance. It is a very practical way to learn martial arts for a self-defense purpose. So it's a very beneficial martial arts to learn. Striking is often what's going to be used in a self-defense situation, but some fights go to the ground, and it's important to know if you're in a confined space especially, it's very beneficial to know how to maneuver in a grappling situation. Wrestling is also a really good, Greco-Roman wrestling. Amazing. You're learning this different way to apply the muscles. It's very different than striking, where you're loose all of the time. Here, you're having to control and exert a lot of force a lot of the time. So you have to build the body's endurance for that type of muscle output. It's very different. And the Gracie family essentially started spreading it along Brazil, and then different families really started practicing it and kind of making it their own. Now there's a few different styles. You have like the Yamasaki family who trains here close to us in Rockville. They're amazing. The Gracie style is amazing, and each one has a kind of different flavor, but they're all essentially Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And what I like about personally the Gracie style of teaching is the way that they've broken down each individual move and created a curriculum that's safe for the integration of people. So when you're starting out going through their system, it really allows you to train in a safe space without that potential of injury, because that's what was happening in the early days of Jiu Jitsu. Is people were getting in there, they were just rolling, they would throw you in there without people knowing about anything, and then you get an injury and be like, I don't want to do this, I'm getting injured and I can't even work now. So that's changed with, a lot of the schools learning that this was happening. They're, cycling through students, they're not retaining students because it's not a safe environment. And it's still snowy out here. It's not a safe environment. So you want to create a safe environment for the students. So the art and the way of teaching evolved, because it is a very dangerous sport. You're pulling and extending limbs out. You're choking people out. That can tweak necks, tweak arms. If the people inside of the gym aren't being respectful in the way that they practice the art. Now it's very critical. When you go to a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gym, right? You want to be looking out. Are they going hard and pulling stuff out and being disrespectful to each other? Or are they respecting the instructor, training well, going hard, but not like pulling random stuff? And you can tell just by looking at these people rolling, their intention and the atmosphere in there. So just make sure it's a good atmosphere when you go into these schools, and you're in the good place when you find one. In Rockville, I definitely recommend Yamasaki's. Amazing school. You got Mario Yamasaki's school. It's Fernando, they're amazing, and definitely check it out there. I've rolled once there with a brown belt friend of ours. He took us there, and amazing place. And you find little pockets there. Usually any Gracie certified gym as well, you're looking to be pretty well off. The Gracie's established a very good system. Learning online, right? So you can also learn online, but the thing is you need something to practice with. So striking, I can just, throw punches in the air, hit a bag, but you're not gonna get the same practicing a jiu-jitsu move in the air. You need a body, you need somebody to be practicing with. So they have a curriculum online where you can have a friend and you essentially practice with them, and you practice the move through a video, and you can work through the belt system that way. It's a really good way to, learn specific skills, train it, and then you record it and send it to them. So that's a good way to train online if you don't have access to it, if you don't have the time to drive somewhere if it's too far, that you can get this kind of training at home. Now, the problem with just training with one person and training at home is that you're not exposed to the way that other people roll. Everyone's gonna roll different. There's gonna be different styles. So this is where going into competitions can become really useful, but can be detrimental if you don't approach it right. And this is another thing to consider when you're going to a jiu-jitsu gym. There's gyms that are gonna train you for competition. They're just like talking about points and points and points and points and points. This is this point, and you're trying to get that choke out. But their focus then becomes on just this point system, and you lose the self-defense aspect of the art, which needs to be really trained in at all times. Otherwise, it's not second nature. And this is really important. When you're training self-defense, you're worried about getting punched in the face. You're worried about all of these different other elements that are not in that point system, because in competitional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're not going to be punching each other. You're literally trying to grapple one another and gain position. You get points for changing position, gaining position on somebody, and takedowns, submissions, escapes, reversals, things of those natures, which are great to learn, is great to execute, and can be exceptionally useful in a fight. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that sometimes in that kind of training, some people do not take seriously the self-defense aspect. So if you are doing and going in that route, make sure you are considering the self-defense aspect. You know, is that person sitting up there and you're like trying to grab their hands, but they could be beating down on your face and you're not protecting your face. You know, you're over here. Because think about this, if that punching element's there, the second they punch, there's a hole and then you can buck them. So it changes everything, right? And that element is also gonna freak the person on the bottom out. And I like to train jiu-jitsu in a way that you're not punching each other, but you're just throwing like little slaps, a little reminder, hey, this is open, hey, boom, boom, I tap you in the chin, I tap you here. Not like a slap, it's a little tap, like you just move them a little bit, you know? It's a little reminder, because that's all we need is, you need to know that right now I can hit you in the face, and you need to do something about it, because if you don't do something about it, you're gonna get knocked out because your head is on the ground. Awesome, makes sense. Once we do all of that, right? Once you train like that, you're not thinking about it. It's just there, right? It's just like blocking. It's just like throwing a punch, bam. So in competition jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of different also competitions that are doing it where you can do submission only. You either win through submitting the person or it's a tie. If you survive, it's a tie. That, I think, is a really great way to do it if you go to a competition like that, because then you're actually learning that stuff, right? It's not about the points, you're literally trying to survive, and it's a different application. And if you want to integrate it into martial arts training, into MMA training, it's also different. There is a really big benefit to training this stuff in a vacuum. If you're training these skills in a vacuum, they become really sharp and you can needle and thread through them. And then you take them out of that vacuum and then you try them out in an MMA situation where you have punches and kicks thrown at you. You try those takedowns, you try some punches, boom, it opens up, you throw an arm bar. But I think that isolating these different kinds of trainings and then bringing them together is gonna refine them, right? And that's one thing that maybe you wanna consider. It's good to train mixed martial arts, but I think you do lose some aspect of that traditional kind of refinement that you get out of it. So something to think about, And we also have, like in MMA, when you learn all of these things, you are getting used to impressioning, and it makes you have reflexes that are more in tune with proper self-defense. And MMA is not the king all, because you're still only trying to knock them out. You still have rules, right? And self-defense supersedes all of this. And this is kind of the point I'm getting to. When you get to self-defense, eye pokes are legal, nut shots are legal, elbow to the knee to the face while the ground's legal. So all of these rules that they're training by still go out the window. And that's one of the things we have to consider when we are training for self-defense, right? Anything goes. It is, you can kick their head off while they're on the ground. And if you're on the ground and someone's standing, that's a problem. If you're on the ground and there's multiple people and you're fighting one person and they're all trying to attack you, that's a problem. In BJJ, you also learn how to not be taken down. Every person in BJJ does not want to go to the ground. They don't want to go to the ground. They want to restrict you. They want to stop you, right? You can do that standing oftentimes, or they can throw you to the ground like a judo move. That's where judo's amazing. Judo is the art, it goes way deeper than just throwing. There's a lot more to judo, but people know it as the art of just throwing, right? It is exceptional. Twisting the hips, twisting the body, creating a foundation, and then looping that person, and just the impact alone would knock somebody out. And then they're open, boom, right there. You can hold them out. So you're learning a lot of these skills in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. There's a lot of schools that will also start you from your knees or your feet, depending on your skill level. Some schools, when they haven't taught throwdowns yet, some schools start with throwdowns. Depends on where you go. And I love jiu-jitsu. So my experience with Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I've been training jiu-jitsu in the belt system started training about 10 years ago. And in the pandemic, I think it was about 6 years of training. I was right about to get to purple belt level. I have a blue belt with 3 stripes and everything closed down. And since then, I haven't been training under a proper teacher. We've been like rolling around, going to places, rolling with people. Went to Brazil, rode with some black belts there. and just getting training, absorbing it wherever I can, just rolling whenever I can. And I do teach it. I teach beginners and some levels of intermediate because I myself need to advance my own jiu-jitsu. My understanding of it, I'm Brazilian myself, I love jiu-jitsu. It's one of my passions. It's like I want to do jiu-jitsu all the time. Right now, as I'm building my business, I get to do it at least once a week. We're going to be changing the schedule up so that we can do jiu-jitsu twice a week, Muay Thai twice a week, and Taekwondo 4 times a week. And we're going to just work on the scheduling a little bit to provide more classes, more training. Hey, right? And I love jiu-jitsu. So almost to that purple belt level, I'll be probably looking at a new training opportunity of like where I can advance my belt level soon for jiu-jitsu. And I've been thinking about the online one, but I might look for somewhere around here and just go in person because you get so much more out of rolling in person. You get so much more, yeah. Because it would be nice to get a purple belt, but I'm working still through an injury here. The inside of my quad needs some further work. It's pulling my stuff in, so that's another thing. Jiu-jitsu people get injured very easily if you are not careful. The majority of injuries come from you trying to pull something and then your elbow comes out and then it hits somebody in the face, right? You're not used to how much strength, and then you yank too hard, or you're going for something, you reach through with the leg and you accidentally send a knee through the face because you're not as familiar with these kinds of movements. The majority of injuries are done now by beginners to intermediate people or to other beginners. So we don't usually have beginners rolling with each other. You usually have like an advanced person with a beginner, or a high level intermediate with a beginner, and vice versa, until that beginner is at a decent level, and then they can start rolling each other without hurting one another. And you can really understand this when you roll with somebody. When you're rolling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can understand if they understand the language of it, or wrestling in a sense, of grappling, and that is how they react. A lot of people react to being grabbed by freaking out. You freak out, you're being grabbed. People don't want to be touched sometimes. And you're having to be comfortable in these awkward situations, and you have somebody trying to move you and involuntarily. And in this sense, you're trying to learn how to defend that and then move them involuntarily into a position where you neutralize their aggressiveness. Really, that's what we're going for. You're trying to neutralize a threat. And that's really all you're learning how to do. And you need to be put in the situation that you understand all of the different ways that you can be attacked. And this goes for stand-up and on the ground, so that you can learn and impression your body in ways to actually defend these ways and then properly attack against them to neutralize that threat. So it's not just like a lot of beginners, you're learning to survive at first. That's kind of the first, that's white belt. That's where it starts, white belt. You're learning to survive. You're getting put in these different situations. You're learning how to move. You're gonna learn submissions, right? You might be able to pull some off. But when you're like really rolling against some experienced people, you're just gonna be learning how to survive. Unless you're just gassing it real quick and throwing stuff real hard at it. Like if you're super strong and athletic, some things come easier. But skill in jiu-jitsu and the way that you can move the hips and change the way their body is moving is going to win over that athleticness. But people who are athletic and have that ego about them and just want to complete a move, that's how people get hurt. So when you approach learning jiu-jitsu, know you are going to get choked out. You're gonna be tapped out. And tap out early. Don't feel ashamed. It's gonna happen. You're gonna do it to other people are gonna do it to you. And every time it happens, rather than approaching it like, he just tapped me out again. Oh, he choked me out again. Oh, he did this move again, right? You're like defeated in there. Why not try to understand how that happened? What did they do? How did they move? What did they move out of the way? What did they grab to put you in this compromising situation so it doesn't happen again? That's the whole reason you're training. Hey, let's go. So when you're in white belt, that's all you're doing. You're learning some moves. Blue belt, you're really polishing. You You're learning how to attack. You're learning how to move on your feet. You're learning how to kind of escape around and getting more technical with applying some of these submissions. And you're becoming good at using them. At purple belt, it's like precision work. It's like you got a razor blade and you're starting to dice into every little potential thing. And you can start cutting into any little block, no matter how strong they are, no matter how big they are. At brown belt, oh man, at that point, it takes a lot longer to go through these belts. Brown belts are at a different level. Then you have black belts, and then you have the degrees of black belts, coral belts, red belt at the top for Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Not many red belts. And the black belts at Jiu Jitsu are in the equivalent of a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo. That's how kind of we see it. And a purple belt is about the equivalent of a black belt in Taekwondo. It takes a long time in Jiu Jitsu. The reason is it takes a lot of time for the body to understand how to do these things and calm down and to gain the strength and endurance to be able to perform them. And if you rush through it, you're not gaining the skills. You need time. You need time to soak it in. So the earlier you start, the better, but it's never too late. I don't care if you're 40, 50, 60. Go out there, try it. Try it. It's never too late. Start strengthening the body. It is amazing for your body because you're learning how to turn and use these muscles that are critical in mobility. It increases and drastically shoots your mobility to the sky because you're having to literally twist and bend in all of these kinds of ways to get through, right? To pull an arm, to move around the person. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, right? But jiu-jitsu can be very destructive. So if you're rolling hard, if you're rolling often, make sure you're doing proper recovery. You're taking maybe a few ice baths, you're heat padding it up, you're putting some ointments on there, you're stretching, you're rolling, you're using a massager, you're going to get a massage, right? You're using a sauna, you're properly hydrating and getting nutrients in your body. If you're not doing this, your body's just gonna go choo, 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 and then something goes pa, and then you get hurt. Right? And then it's worse. I know because I have hurt myself too many times. I'm working on an injury right now. I thought it was better. And then I went climbing. And then I hurt it more. It happens. It happens. I jumped down before. I was like, oh, it's fine. And I jumped and like stood up and partially tore a little ligament in here. But it's healing. And I just got to strengthen different areas. Like I can move fine. But because I got hurt, right? This specific area is not strong anymore. So my leg starts pulling a different way. So like I can do all this stuff, but I can feel the restriction in some areas. So I have to rehabilitate different muscles. So injuries really set things back. So you gotta really be aware of your own limitations when you're training things like this. When you first do jiu-jitsu, you're gonna be gassed. Just know it. Pace yourself. Give yourself like a month of just going and know it's gonna be hard, know it's gonna suck, know it's gonna be like physically exhausting. And then the next couple of days after you train, you're just gonna be like, what the hell? I feel like I got ran over by a truck. Cause you did. You got ran over by multiple trucks and it gets easier. But then when you start rolling harder, it still kind of feels the same. Eventually, when you really build up the tolerance and the strength, it goes away. But you take it gradually, but then you gotta build up the tolerance, the strength, and then you can roll for like 2 hours, and then you're like sore for like a day or two, and then you're good. And then it's nice, it's really nice. So go out there, practice jiu-jitsu. It's really important. It's really important. It's one of the best methods of self-defense for restricting an opponent without striking them. It's really great for taking down bigger opponents. It's really great for close range combat and getting things done on the ground, for moving, for protecting yourself. And it's a complement to the striking, and that's why we do it. We're going to talk about the synergy of all three of the main disciplines that we do, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, after we have our Muay Thai episode coming up soon. 8 limbs. Okay. But before that, we're probably going to have one more episode in between, and I'm going to try to get it done before Love Burn. Oh, Love Burn's coming up soon. Our project. If you haven't checked it out, all our social media. We got our glass artwork, Vito Glass Art on Instagram, Fera_Academy on Instagram, FeraAcademy.com, just Fera Academy, just nothing in between there, .com, that's our website. And I'll be posting up pictures of the installation, all the stuff. It's gonna be beautiful. I already have some pictures of the current murals that we're working on. My friend Shamal's doing the outlines. They're gorgeous. I'm filling in with oil paint. They're gonna look amazing. So I'm actually about to go work on that. I hope y'all have a good day. Subscribe, like, send to a friend, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Unlimited You, unlocking your potential.
Thank you for joining Master Victor on The Unlimited You. Make sure to visit our website, www.feraacademy.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.